and it will be easy for us so that things will work out really, really well for us. Okay, that's what I really want to do, is have a good experience, and I'm having a little trouble with the chat box. So you'll help Rose a lot if you'll do that, precede those things with question marks. And I'm going to go a little slower today so that I can make sure I don't miss those questions that we might have when we get into the Canvas. Okay. Okay. Simple things about the webinar. Some days we cover all four topics, all four things on our platform. Other times we only do one, and today we're only going to do Uzine. I can't answer support questions. Rose will be glad to direct you to where you need to go for support questions. Your answers are important, or your questions are important, but they have to relate to today's topic, because sometimes it takes a little while to prep for the question that you have. So, I give you a couple of ways to be able to contact us ahead of time. Any of you are free to send me a private message on Facebook anytime that you want, or post something in the Facebook group and say, can you include this in the Friday webinar? That way I've got a chance to prepare for it and not try to do it at last minute while I'm on the webinar and I only have a few minutes to get that in. So it would help us greatly if you do that. It helps us to relate that to today's topic. And let's just don't be rude. Let's make this a really good experience for everybody who's here. And I don't know anything about partners offers, so I can't answer questions about that. And Rose is going to give you a link right now that will help you to get the answers to your questions that you might have on Friday. Okay. The next thing is, and I always try to share something on Friday that I think might be helpful to you. And I love this quote: every artist was at first an amateur. And you can fill in anything that you want to in that blank. And you're welcome to do that, but make sure that you understand that everybody starts out as an amateur. Everybody had to learn how to do things first. And that reminds me of a great quote that I got from Marlon Sanders. And this is what Marlon Sanders, the great internet marketing guru, Marlon Sanders, said this: these are skills that you learn. You got to dig in and work to learn them. They don't fall into your lap. Otherwise, everyone in the freaking world would already do it, and they wouldn't need you now, would they? It's good that it's not easy and fast to learn. If it were, there'd be no opportunity for you. And so I really, really like that. And I wanted to share that with you today. I'm always talking to you about mastery. And so today we're gonna step back and we're gonna take a look at some things, some basic things that can be extremely helpful to you and give you some excellent mastery. Hey, Jason, good to see you. Yeah, I'm not sure it takes 10,000 hours to become a pro anymore, but it takes some time to do that. It takes some time to master things. The next thing I want to share with you is this little post that Rose has in the group. And I really like this. This is, again, another one of those opportunities to develop mastery. And this is a program that Bertrand has put together that gives you some, it's an 18-part lesson series that gives you some basics that can really be helpful to you. And Bertrand's a graphic guru and has some great tips to share with you in that platform. Now, Rose sent me this article that she wrote, and there is the link to it. And I had it saved earlier, and it has disappeared. So Rose, if you can share that link, I would appreciate it. And I want you all to click on that link and save that. Obviously, I want you to come back and hear me, but click on that and save it. Thank you, Rose. I appreciate that. I want to make sure that you all get a chance to see this blog post that Rose had. And I'm going to take it apart piece by piece in just a little bit. And we're going to take a look at the things that she shared in that. And so I want you to read that carefully. This is about mastering your skills. And these are really, really basic, but they are mastering your skills. And we're going to talk about them because it's those little things that make the difference. And this is the last time I'm going to share this with you, but I want you, this is one of those little things, that color wheel, making sure that you understand the value of making those colors work to accomplish your purpose. And so hopefully you'll take a little time as we go along and get that thing mastered and figure out where those colors come from and develop your skills in using colors. Okay. Now I have a question for you. Last week we asked how many of you had shared a design in the group, and what happens? I'm gone for a week. So we have 2 weeks and we don't have hardly any. We have hardly any people have shared in the group a design. And so my question is today, and I'm going to give you a chance to answer this. Why haven't you shared a design in the group? So tell me why you haven't shared a design in the group. If you haven't, tell me why you haven't done that. I'm really curious to find out, because after we pushed that last week, or the last time that we met, which was 2 weeks ago, still don't have any designs coming up in the group. You need to be sharing your designs. Right? That's just simply not true. People are interested in what you have and what you share. Yep, make sure that you do, because this is a great place to get some feedback, some positive feedback. And if any of y'all are not positive, Rose and I will scold you. But make sure that you, yes, Stephanie, you know better than that. Of course, people want to see yours, and they want to see everybody's. I want to see what people are doing. It helps me drastically to be able to do better webinars, to be able to hit on the things that I see that people might need some help with. It really makes a difference if you'll share those designs in the group. So please do that. But thank you for giving me your feedback. I appreciate that. And Lynn, I understand that you're just starting, but that's the great time to do that. Okay. All right. The next thing is, remember, your post goes here. Okay. Share that in the group. I just want to share that with you. Okay. A couple of things that come up, and this I keep answering these questions in the group, and I want to make sure that you understand this. Make sure your flash is updated. Check to see if you have any extension conflicts before you say this is not working. Check to see if you have extension conflicts. Check your image size when you're trying to use the erase tool. Every single time that we have an issue with the erase tool, it's always the image size, and it's two things. It's the pixel size and it's the bulk size of the image itself. So those are usually the problem. Another thing that will really help you, and this is the last time I'm gonna read this, reduce the complexity of your designs. Keep things simple. Simple makes awesome easy, and so reduce the complexity that you have, okay? The next thing is occasionally clear your cache. I have people tell me, well, I don't have heavy browser usage. Yes, you do. This is a heavy browser tool, and you have other things that you do as well. And so make sure that you occasionally clear your cache, because as things are getting more browser heavy and more stuff's being done on the internet, we have more and more issues with people needing to clear their cache. So make sure that you do that. And remember, if you're not happy with the results on Facebook, Facebook has a mind of its own. Just have to remind people of that once in a while. Okay. Don't forget that we have a suite of tools, and we're trying to encourage you to use those and develop those together. I'll talk about something pretty cool here in just a minute. Kim, I don't know how to fix that. I really don't. I am sharing things, so you should be able to see that. Try hitting F5 and refresh your screen or refresh your browser and see if that makes a difference, because I should be presenting something. I think most people are saying that. Okay. All right. This is how you get your comments included on the webinars. Okay. Just put a hashtag Friday Webby there, and I will make sure that I include that. I may make a video and put it in the group, and I will also make sure that I include that in the I'll make sure I include that in either the next Friday webinar. You know, obviously, if you do that at 10 minutes before the webinar goes live, I'm not going to be able to do it, but I'll make sure that we get that in there. Okay, I want to make sure that we get people's questions answered. And so if you have those, this is a great, quick, easy way to do that. All right. Again, I want to remind you of that Marlon Sanders. It takes a little work to do this. So we're going to work on some of those skills right now. And this is in the blog post by Rose. And she takes 5 things that are important for you to learn how to master. All right. And this is it. The first one is how to use the border. So we're going to play with these tools just a little bit today, and I'm going to show you some tricks that you can do with this that perhaps you had never thought of before. This is a great blog post by Rose, and we're going to actually take a look at the blog post because I want you to see her use of GIFs in the blog post because she does a great job of that. A couple of other things I want to highlight in that blog post. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But the first one was border effect. The next one was the blur tool. And the next one, thank you, Jason, appreciate that. The next one, so we'll talk about the blur effect, and I use this more than people are aware of, and it is really kind of a cool opportunity for you to be able to do some really cool stuff with your designs. The next one is the shadow effect, and this is a great little GIF created by Rose in the blog post to show you just how cool that really can be, that shadow effect. Now keep in mind that anytime that you're doing something like this webinar or you're doing something like Rose's post here, we slightly exaggerate the things so that it's easy for you to see them. If they're very subtle, you won't see them, but you'll see the benefit from them. So we'll always exaggerate things just a little bit, but it's really cool how she had used a GIF to highlight and talk about shadowing. Okay, and then we have the opacity tool, and we use this all the time. I mean, literally all the time. And I'll show you how important that really is. All right. And the last one is the duplicate tool. Saves you tons of work. That duplicate tool is extremely beneficial, and there's some really, really cool stuff that we can do with that. And I showed you that last time by making that book cover, this book cover right here. And we may go back and take a look at some of the tools that Rose has listed here as they would apply to that book cover. Okay. And so we're going to move to the tips and tricks section of our webinar, and then we'll wrap up by trying to answer any questions that may have got left over or lingered that I didn't get a chance to catch. Okay, so that's what we're going to head to right now. Let me make some changes here, change the screen. Hopefully things will come back just like they're supposed to, and life will be good. Give me just a minute here. I see an issue I have to deal with that might help us a little bit. I hope it will. All right, you should be seeing Rose's blog post here. The 5 underrated yet powerful tools you should master. I'm glad you used that word, Rose. Thank you. That you should master in Usign. So we want to make sure that I just want you to see this. I think this is important that you see this. Okay. I want you to see how Rose has, because this will help you a lot. Sometimes you need to take a look at what are other people doing? How are they setting up a blog post? How are they setting up? How are they using graphics or images inside of the blog post? And you'll even get ideas from that. And so I want you to take a look at this. I'm going to scroll through this and we're going to talk about it just a little bit. This was really helpful. Rose is showing how to create a border here. And then you'll notice also it has the no fill on it. And so she's created the lettering and then removed the lettering so the black background shows through. And that's really easy. That's very simple and very obvious when you do that. And then the blur effect, she shows where the blur effect tool is at. She also gives a good example of that here. And then over here, And she also shows where you can use it, that blur effect at. But I want you to watch this for a moment, because what this is a great example of using a GIF. Are y'all seeing that? Do you see how she's actually demonstrating that by the use of a GIF, and she's embedded that GIF inside of her website. Jason, I can't answer that on this call. I'm sorry. But this is just a really, really good example of using a GIF inside of a blog post. And you can see that there is nothing that needs to else that needs to be said. You can clearly see what she's doing, and you can see where she's finding those tools at, and she's used a GIF to make that happen. I just think that's really cool. I wanted you to see that. I'm always talking about using my primary use of GIFs is for this particular reason right here, and I wanted people to see that this is actually something that we've used in a blog post. Okay. All right. The next thing is this opacity tool. We're going to talk about that because that is really cool. Okay. If you can't see, you're going to have to press F5 and refresh your screen or refresh your browser. Not sure what's going on this morning, but we've got a few people who are having that issue. And that seems to be working for everyone. Okay. And then the duplicate tool and how that can reduce your workload. All right. So I wanted you to see that before we get into the thing here. I want to see one more thing here. I always enjoy Rose's posts, and I've enjoy the work that she puts into this and the clarity that she gives. And when you go down here and look at the bottom of this, Rose, I'm not picking on you, but I do have to point this out. I'm a minimalist who enjoys U-Signing. I love that. What a great title. A minimalist who enjoys U-Signing. Most of us have not been minimalists. We instead focus on, oh, if I had this thing over here, then I could do this. If I had this thing over here, I could do this. Instead, we just take the very basic things and you learn to master them. Being a minimalist really helps you to do that. So thank you, Rose, for letting me pick on you for just a moment, because I think Rose is an amazing person, and I love her support for me in these webinars, and I also really, really enjoy the blog that she put together here. And I thought it would be very helpful to you to share that with you today, because she did an amazing job with this. Okay. Now, let's get over here to the canvas and take a look at this. This is the thing that I posted earlier. This is the image that I had posted earlier. And so I'm going to do my best to try to make this so I can still watch your chat. So give me just a second to rearrange my screen just a little bit and see if this will help, okay? I need to be able to see that. So this is the image that I put together for the Friday share. And I took this colored pencil article, or took this colored pencil image right here from our integration partners. I took that from Pixabay. And I took that and I reduced the opacity on that. Remember, one of the tools that she highlighted was the opacity tool. And so I reduced the opacity of that. Watch what happens when I increase the opacity. Makes it impossible for it to read, okay? So by reducing the opacity of the background, I actually allowed the background to do its work, and that was to provide a great backdrop for what I wanted the quote to say. And sometimes reducing the opacity of that makes a big difference in how effective the quote itself can actually be. Okay, do y'all see that? So I reduced the opacity to that. I could have taken that down further, but at some point you lose the benefit. All right, I like about 60% there. That worked out really, really well. Okay, so that's the first step And it's a great use of the opacity tool, is to reduce the opacity of your background so that the background, instead of being an image, becomes a backdrop. And the backdrop is much more effective than the image itself. When I have it as the original image, it's almost impossible to do that. All right. So the next thing that I want you to see is that if I had to leave that image that size, then I have some options. And I want to show you what those options are by using the very thing that Rose had talked about in the blog post. And that is, I'm going to take, let this bump over here. I'm going to take an image, a shape, so I'm going to take a shape here, and I'm going to make this so that it becomes the background for the quote. Okay. I'm going to resize this so that it fills up my quote. And I'm going to move it around here in just a second. So don't worry about that. And then I'm going to start sending it backwards until the quote shows up. All right. That doesn't look so good. Instead, what I have is I have the image as a border here. So if I take this, I'm not even going to change the color. I'm just going to reduce the opacity of that. And I find a spot where that looks pretty good, right? Now, obviously, I'd want to center it and all that kind of stuff, but I want you to see that. So you've got a fairly easy way to make your lettering stand out from the background without reducing the opacity of the background. There may be a reason why you don't want to reduce the opacity of that. And so you need a way to be able to make this so that it functions well, okay? So I can put this so that it centers up a little bit, and I use my tool here, and it centers that. And now it looks okay, all right? But I put a graphic image behind it, reduce the opacity of that. That allows it to do this. Now watch what happens if I take the blur tool, and now I'm going to add a blur to that image right there, that box. Okay, do you see that? I'm going to put a heavy blur to that box. Now look at it. Do you see the difference that makes? Can you see how mastering some very simple tools makes some pretty amazing things happen? That's why that blur tool can become extremely beneficial to you. Not only can you use it to blur something out, but you can use it to fade something in. So if I take this background image right here and I reduce the opacity of it again, watch what happens to this. I get this down to 60 like I was before. Now do you see the difference? And you can see the difference that background, that blur tool makes in making this fit in, okay? That's the point that I want you to see, is that you just a simple tool like the blur tool. Now, there's lots of really cool ways to use the blur tool, and that's one of them, all right? It really makes that stand out. Now, I could have done the same thing. I could have also taken this background right here. Again, if at first you don't get what you want, keep clicking till you do. And we have a word for that. Somebody want to tell me what that is? What's the word we have for that? So I'm going to click on the background image, and I'm going to put that right there. And now I'm going to take my blur tool, and I'm going to blur the background itself. Okay. And I can make that So it looks like it's way off in the distance. Yes, it's Clickology. Thank you. So really some cool things that you can do with that, with the very, very basic tools like the blur tool, the just lost my mind, the opacity tool. Those are the two that we've covered so far. So now let's take a look at, let's go back over here to this. Let's go over here, and I want to show you something that I think is really cool. I'm going to click on a border for this, all right? And we'll play with the border in just a minute. I'm going to click on the border right here, and I'm going to put a very, very faint, and I'm going to make this a black border. Put a very faint black border on it and click the no fill. Now look what happens. Now I'm getting that image from behind. I'm going to get rid of this, and now all of a sudden I have a completely different look than I had before. I'm letting the colors from the background show through. Does that make sense? Just simply taking and removing the inside of the lettering from here. Now, you can do some other really cool stuff with the border. All right, let's change that border to this color right here, and we'll increase the size of it. Notice what happens now. Give it a completely different look. Makes that look like it's standing out. How did I just do that? What I did was I took the border right here. I selected this color border, and then I increased the size of the border. And you can make that ridiculously large like this. Then it looks like it's on a blurb, okay? Yes, I've done that, Gemma. I've done that several times. We have a whole bunch of instruction on how to do that, and that is you can very easily do one of two things. You can cut out an empty space inside of a background like this one, or you can cut out the background and leave the letters in that color. So I have those options. I can reduce the size of this. All right, this down here like this. And I'll talk Gemma through this. I won't be able to demonstrate this because I don't have the power to do that today. But I can. I don't have the. I have to load and unload and upload, and I'm just afraid that we're going to lose the experience here if we do that. Thank you, Rose. I appreciate that. But you can actually take this and cut out all of the background here and leave the letters just in that color. I frequently do that in the fall. I'll do fall foliage, and I'll make the letters out of fall foliage. Sometimes I do it out of M&Ms, which is really kind of cool. Okay. Now, the next thing is not only can we do that, not only can we do the blur tool, but what other tool did Rose give us that we can take a look at? And then I'm going to go back and play with that book cover, and you're going to see how those tools that Rose has put in that blog play out. Okay, so what tool are we missing? We've done the blur tool. We've done the opacity tool. We've done the no-fill tool. We have not done the shadow tool, right? And the duplicate tool. Shadow and duplicate. So let's take a look at those. Now, let's take this again. And this time, instead, what we're going to do, turn the no-fill off, turn the border off. And now, we're going to add a shadow to this. Okay. And you can see immediately that that started to stand out when I added the shadow. Now, you can play around with this shadow and do some really cool stuff with it. You can rotate it. You can make the colors go around like this. It's going around the image like that. So you can make the shadow come from any direction that you want to. Again, keep in mind that if you're going to do shadows, and we did one time with a stack of books, and they showed you how to increase the shadow size and all of that. That was a pretty cool webinar. I don't have the time to do that today, nor do I have the stuff put in. We may do that one again because that was pretty beneficial. I get asked that question a lot. People that I know are asking about how do I make a stack of books. So I just thought that was pretty cool. So, but we have to use the shadow tool, and you move the shadow as you move through the stack. So we'll play with that at a future date. But you have this shadow tool, and there's some pretty cool stuff that you can do with this, including increasing the opacity of it so it looks darker. And you can change the distance of that as well. Okay, sometimes shadows get overdone, but you can do some pretty awesome stuff if you'll be a little imaginative about the shadow. Okay, like that made a whole difference right there. All right. And again, I didn't have to put a box in the background or any other object in the background and reduce the opacity of it. I did it with the shadows. Okay. And then we have the duplicate tool. So let's do this. Let's go back to, I'll do my best to go back to that project that we had the last time. That we did for the book cover. Okay. So let me get rid of everything here. And I'm going to change this custom size to a product cover. All right. And then I'm going to go over here to my uploads, and I'm going to find that product cover. Okay. Trying to remember how far back that was, right there. All right, this was my product cover. Had a client that had asked me to make a product cover for him using a landscape image. Well, it's virtually impossible to make a product cover with a landscape image. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to put I'm going to make my background transparent so that I can play. All right. And then the next thing I want to do is put a grid line on here, because I want to make this image in the top half. I want to do something else with the bottom half. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is make sure that I can see my off canvas elements. And I'm going to grab the corner of this and I'll pull this down until it fits that top half of the book. Okay. And I want that to be slightly off-centered. I want him to be slightly off-centered. Just, that's a personal preference, but that's all it is. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. Now I have two images. Okay. Two images that are the same size. That way I don't have to resize the second image. I don't have to import the second image. I just simply duplicate it. Makes my life a lot easier when I can just duplicate that. Okay. Are y'all paying attention? I just need to know. Just give me a little love here so we know what's going on. And then I'm going to take this and flip it. All right. Now you can see what starts to happen when I do that. So that's one tool. Now you see how we've taken the duplicate tool. And I'm having a little problem placing this. That's part of my issue here today. So now that almost begins to look like a reflection, right? So what I want to do now is I want to take this lower reflection and I'm going to reduce the opacity on it, right? Take my opacity tool and I reduce the opacity of it. That's the first thing. Second thing is I'm going to take this tool right here and I'm going to reduce, I'm going to put a blur to it. All right. And you see what happened the moment I put that blur on it? It starts to look more like a reflection, right? So I've duplicated it, one tool. I have flipped it upside down, which is another tool, but I duplicated exactly the right size. I have now added the blur to it and I've reduced the opacity to it. So I'm using all of the tools that were in Rose's blog on one design so far, those tools on one design, okay? That's the first thing that I want you to see. Now we're going to have some fun with this, all right? And here's how we're going to have some fun with it. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of the transparent background. I'm going to go to a gradient background. And when I go to a gradient background, I can have all kinds of fun with this, okay? As soon as I went to that gradient background, did you see how this over here changed? It made this a little brighter. It made this look a little bit different, okay? What do you think? Do you see how that by reducing the opacity and putting that as the background, it has to be the background, I can make a big difference in how that's going to look, okay? I can do this. Okay, I'll show you what I would do with the text, because this is supposed to be a product cover. I'll show you what I do with the text in just a minute. I did it so that you could see it. Again, remember, I do a lot of these things that I do in slight exaggeration, so it's easy for you to see, okay? But I could do this. I could change that gradient to these colors right here and see what happens. Take this one up here, and I'm going to reduce that one a lot if I can. I'm having great trouble with my mouse today, my mouse pointer, because of the disruption in my screen. All right, let's put that right there. And watch what happens when I flip this. See the difference? Now, I can go up here and reduce the opacity of this just a little bit. And when I do that, see what happens? Flip it over. There you go. So all you're doing is applying a little bit of imagination and then playing with the tools that you have. How easy is that? But the first thing is you get that done, okay? Again, this is one of those things, Stephanie's just said it. That's the reason why you practice these. This is how you develop mastery. And last time that we met, I talked about this being a problem solution issue. The guy gave me a landscape picture and said, can you make a product cover out of this? Well, I had to make a product cover out of that, and it was landscape. How do I turn it into a portrait mode so I can put it as a product cover? I had a couple of options. One of them, I could have put it in a little box down at the bottom. I could have written the heading over the top of that. But I really like this. And the most important thing is the client loved it. I mean, absolutely loved it. And it was because there's just some cool stuff that you can do here that other people aren't just running out and doing. It's the thing that when you master the tool, it gives you the ability to be able to then have a skill that other people will go, that's why I asked you to do this, because you can do that. where other people didn't even think of that as being a possibility. And so you could play with this. It has a similar effect, Eric. You're exactly right, only it's slightly different. And it's allowing that color to show through the opacity of the image, different than laying it over the top of it. Okay. No, that image actually was an image that the client had bought because he loved it. The problem was he went and got that image and didn't have, I don't know, maybe he got it from somewhere. I don't have any idea where he got it from, but he brought it to me and said, can you make a product cover out of this? Yep, that's what I did. So that's it right there. Now, the next question is, if this is a product cover, where are you going to put the lettering? And what are you going to do with that? Because it looks really cool like this, right? I mean, it looks really cool, but if you saw that on a book cover like this, and this is the reason why this is so cool. If you see this on a book cover, you just don't know anything, right? You really don't know anything. So I've got to be able to put some information here that's going to be helpful to people so that they'll want to and be attracted to the truth is, Gene, that when I did this originally, okay, I'm gonna tip my hand here. Bertrand had asked me to make a 1-minute video showing a skill. This was the skill that I did, and I did it in 1 minute and 7 seconds. So yeah, that's what happens when you master your skills. Okay, you have the ability to be able to do that kind of a thing, and so now, what am I going to do with the lettering on this? Let me get rid of the grid marks, and when I do, I notice that I have just a little tiny bit of adjustment that I want to do right there, and now it looks straight. And so I'm getting a little bit of a black line where those two overlap. So I want to reduce that so that black line goes away. Got just a little bit more to go. Now this is tweaking this design so it looks good. I've got just a tiny black line there now. Do that and it's gone. Okay, so now you apply some little tweaks to this. What I would probably do at this stage of the game is save that image, and I would save it just like that, so that I'd save it as a group, and I can save it as a group by doing this, clicking on these two elements. Now I take my group tool over here and I can save that as a group. All right, until I'm done with it, because I want to make sure that I don't lose anything. All right. So I've got a couple of suggestions about the text here. Remember, this is where the group goes, okay? Right there in the groups. So now I have this saved. Nice to have it saved in case anything happens along the way, okay? So a couple of things. Esther's saying that she would put the text across this middle part right here, and that would be fine if you wanted to put the text right there. It would kind of depend on, a couple of things. Is that, how big is the text going to be? What's this going to be? And that might be fine. The problem that I have with that idea, and it's just it's a totally a personal thing. Remember, so many of these things are nothing more than your personal idea, okay, and your personal opinion. I would put the text going down this way, and I would that's what I would do. Or maybe on this side over here. But I prefer to have my book titles coming from the upper left corner, because what your eye does when it sees an object like that is that it naturally, because we read from left to right. I don't know about people who read from right to left, but I know about people who read from left to right. People who read from left to right will look at an object in its upper left-hand corner first. So because of that, that's the reason why I would make that, I would put the title up here in this corner here. All right, does that make sense? So I would put it, personal preference, I would put it there. All right, let's make this a color so it's easy to see. And this is where those, you want the colors to kind of stand out. All right. Now that looks, this would be, let me go ahead and do this. Book only has 1K in it, Eric. And do that so that it does this. And then make sure that it's left justified. It'll look better if I do it that way. All right, several things that I can do. Probably not, Eric, not in this particular case, because what we're dealing with is black and grays here. And so in this case, I want red because it captures people's attention. And you'll see what I mean by that in this case right here. And you're not going to see that on a color wheel. That's going to catch your attention when you do that. All right. That appears to have, it does. It appears it has a tiny border around the outside of it. Now I could have done this, made that stand out. I could have changed that color here so that it was like that. But let's remove it all, and we'll do it with a shadow this time, okay? And I can do it with a shadow. So I have those options available to me, but I might also want to take a graphic grab a vector image here. I definitely want to, I shouldn't say definitely, I would probably want to do this, okay? I would probably do this. And in this case, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger, and I'm gonna run it in the corner like that. I'll show you why in just a second. Now, I want this to be a lot bigger. Not quite that big. Get this close enough you can handle it. Are y'all watching what's going on here? Yeah, that was probably, honestly, I think that it was Business in the Balance was the name of the book that I did for the client. But it was a great challenge for me. Okay, now I can reduce the opacity of this like we learned before, right? Reduce the opacity of that. I'm going to go back over here because I think this will look better if I put a border around the outside of it. And I'm not going to use white because that looks, to me, that looks a little bit gaudy. And so I'm going to use black in this case. And you're seeing what's going on here, okay? So I can now take this, make that centered in this, and I take this box right here. Now I'm going to blur it, okay? Like that. Or I can do this. You take that. Put it all the way across like that. Reduce it even more. It's now making the title stand out, and it didn't impact the way the image looked, right? So do you see how taking those 5 simple tools that Rose wrote the blog about, you can do amazing things with them? And the better you master them, the easier it becomes. So now I have to put the author's name over here. So give me just a second, because I forgot to do that. So we'll take this. Let me put the author's name there. How's that look? Very simple, very easy way to create something that I think will become magical for your clients. Any questions? 5 very simple tools that mastering them makes all the difference in the world. So now let's take one more look at this. And we'll do it like this. And see, I might want to move that a little over from the spine. And, but when you take a look at all of the options here, looks pretty good, right? For something that we created on the fly. Like I said, might want to move this over a little bit. And I can do that now because I made the blur go bigger. All right. And you can see all of the options here. So what do you think? You see how using those simple tools, very simple tools, you can do some really, really cool and easy to do stuff. And it makes you look outstanding when you do that. Okay. That brings us up to almost the end of the hour. Are there any questions before we go? When I got that blog from Rose, I said, Rose, let's do this today. I want to do this today. I want to take those tools, and I want to show them in multiple applications how we can make this work. And so that's what we did here. And I think that you can see why I'm constantly pushing for mastery here. Yes, you should all be able to show something in the group. I'm interested to see how you're going to be able to take those simple things that we talked about today and create something magical that you'll want to share in the group. Okay? Anything else before we go? It's good to be back. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be back. I had that one episode for a health issue, and I had the one episode for the kids that I do every year, same time every year, and we'll do again next year. So yeah, Yusuf's asking about changing the color of the icons, and I can quickly do that one because that's easy. All right, let me grab an icon here, and I'll show you. Okay, let me grab a simple one. This is what's supposed to be happening in my neighborhood in just a little bit. So when you click on that, see the little color button over here, I can change the color of that icon, and I can make it look like that. Okay, that's all you have to do, Yusuf. Sometimes it has more than one, but most of the icons that are available here are a single icon. Okay. Yeah, Steph, that's really, it happens all the time. They think that you can take a horizontal picture and turn it into a landscape mode, or I'm sorry, into a portrait mode and create a book out of it. That's a great way to be able to do that. Okay. Problem solving. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me. we're at the end of the hour. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place. Hopefully we'll get the email thing straightened out with the platform, and I'll have a little bit better experience with the computer. So thank you for joining me today. Have a great weekend. I'll look forward to talking to you soon.